Welcome to the You Can Man podcast, episode 6. I'm Josh.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Dave.
And on this week's episode, New House Know-How.
All right, guys, welcome back. Dave, how was your week?
It was okay. I'm stressed out this week because I don't know if you guys have checked the weather, but it's literally going to rain for every day for the next 2 weeks. And my roof leaks.
Oh,
yeah.
Good for
you. Well, when you say roof, though, it's...
All right, it's the roof over my back porch, my screened-in porch. But it's still, it's still water intrusion into your house. So today I went out and bought the biggest, thickest tarp that I could find and a bunch of bricks.
Was it camo?
It's not camo. It's brown or blue, reversible, and some bricks to hold it down. I'm not real happy about the bricks. I was going to do sandbags, but I couldn't find the sand. And then I was like, CMU blocks. I'm going to grab those. I was like, these are heavy. I'm not carrying them up my ladder. So I settled on bricks anyway.
Did you get it up today?
For future?
No, so I didn't have time to do it today. I didn't have time to do it after work. So I'm going to do it in the morning before I go to work.
All right.
For future reference, I have a massive pile of concrete blocks.
Once again, Tim, Johnny come lately.
I got a pile of bricks, too, if you need.
Well, I have 8 bricks. They were 98 cents a piece.
You bought bricks.
I did.
Wow. You are a suburban boy.
I really am. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm getting up on my roof tomorrow after my wife leaves for work, so I'll just
Keep
wait
your phone
for
in
it.
your
Yeah,
pocket.
I was going to say I'm going to have my phone on me. Tim, I know you'll be home, so...
I probably will.
If I call you at like 7:30, answer that call, okay? Because I'm going to be on the ground.
And if you don't hear anything on the other end, go ahead and head over.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's
What's up with
on
you,
my
Tim?
mind.
About to take the kids. I've got 3 kids, a boy and 2 girls, 8, 5, and 3, on a road trip to Louisiana to visit my grandmother. And my wife is not going.
You poor man.
Yeah, my mom will be on the trip.
She's riding shotgun?
Yeah.
Nice.
Grandma up front.
Hey,
That's not so bad.
No,
That's not so bad.
Having
Yeah.
grandma puts a little buffer on the kids, takes the edge off a little bit.
Yeah, so listeners that are just joining us, we're all from the Atlanta area, so it's quite a drive from Atlanta to Louisiana.
Yeah, that's a hike. How long is that?
Well, I think it's going to be about 7.5 hours.
Okay, that's doable.
Yeah, and then after we visit my grandmother, she's kind of like central Louisiana, then we'll swing back through New Orleans and visit a cousin of mine that lives there, so...
Nice.
Bourbon Street like you do with kids or something.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
right?
Totally. And you're taking them in the 98
Some
Explorer.
cemetery tours,
Drive through.
And the Exploder?
My Explorer definitely would make the trip.
Definitely?
But no. Oh, yeah, of course. No doubt. Right. I could drive that thing to Alaska. But no.
I like the confidence.
We're taking the 2012 Toyota Sienna.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Make sure you drive by the drive-through daiquiri place with the kids.
Kids, you want anything?
Got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, what about you?
Well, speaking of kids, one of my brothers, I have 5 siblings younger than me. One of my brothers' wives had a baby last week.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. An uncle for the 5th. Sounds good. 5th time. So he invited me up to the hospital to come see the new baby. So I drive to the hospital.
Is the baby a boy or girl?
It is a boy.
What's the baby's name?
I'm not going to say.
What?
So the baby...
Wait, are you not going to say? Okay, never mind.
Hey, I haven't gotten his permission to use his name.
Oh,
so.
I thought you were embarrassed.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So it's a nice, strong name. Anyway, go to the hospital. My brother's like, hey, we're in room 593. So I go up to the nurse's station on the 5th floor. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for my brother. He's in room 593. And she says, our rooms don't go up that high. So I send a text to my brother that says, you're not at this hospital, are you? No. So, yeah,
man.
brother went to the wrong hospital.
Wow.
The hospital he was at was right next door to my work where I came from. So it all didn't work out.
So you didn't go that day?
No, I haven't seen the baby yet.
Okay.
So one day.
Good job.
One day I will see the baby, but it wasn't last week.
I did kind of the same thing where my sister had 2 babies last year, and I went to go visit her
at the same time.
At the same, yeah, two big twins. I went to go visit her, and I was using her maiden name. Like I was trying to check in. I was like, "No, she's here." And they were like,
"Sister."
They were like, "No, she's not here." I was like, "She's in this hospital. This is her name." And they were like, "We don't have anybody." I was
try that again.
And then I was like, "Oh, yeah, maiden name." Anyway,
yeah. Okay. Well, good recap on the week, guys. Let's get into the topic of new house know-how. These are going to be things that you must know when you move into a new house. Now, some of us are newer to our homes than others, but I think we've all been in a new house within the past 10 years. Dave,
yep,
in the past 5, me in the past 5, really. So let's kick things off with the first item, which is locating your water and gas shutoffs in the house.
Right. And like Josh said, so we're planning on making this a series, and this first episode will be dealing with things you just need to know. And then the subsequent episodes will probably be things you should do, right?
Yeah. And there's a comprehensive list of almost infinite things that you can do on your new house or that need to be done on a new house. So we'll definitely get into those. This episode is the critical things you have to know.
Yeah,
you have to know these things.
Sorry. I think about with this, the topics that we're talking about in this episode, I think about when I bought my first house and I was standing in there that first night and, you know, it kind of washes over you.
The weight of responsibility.
Yeah. And also, you know, you never owned a home before. And so it's like, you know, what do I need to know? Like, what do I need to do? Is there anything to... So that's kind of the
everything falls on you.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So
and you may or may not have had a really good home inspector. I remember our home inspector. He knew we were young, and so I think he kind of explained a lot of stuff. But a lot of people may not have that, right? Mm-hmm. Or someone that's telling them what we consider now to be obvious things, but they're really not obvious when you first get into that house.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first 2 things are pretty critical things you should know. If things go south with a water heater or a faucet or a toilet, we're talking water damage. Yeah. So knowing where that water shut off is critical. And we can even talk about there's more than one water shut off. So Tim, give us your story.
I was helping a friend. He moved into a new house. He had just been in there probably 2 months. And the previous owners had really wrenched on the hose connecting the washer, and so he couldn't get it off, and he wanted to replace the hose because it was a really old hose.
Okay.
And I was like, bro, I got this. So I go over there, and I give it a few goes at first. I'm like, yeah, you're right, this is actually on there really good, but I'm like, I'm gonna get it off.
Oh, definitely not leaving.
So I busted his pipe.
Fast forward.
Yeah. And water's gushing everywhere. And at the time, I just wasn't thinking there was a valve right there leading into the the water heater that I did eventually turn off. But immediately I'm like, go turn off your water, because there's water just spewing everywhere. And he didn't know where it was.
Wow.
And I had never been to his house, so I didn't know where it was, right? So he runs off and frantically trying to
just running in circles, basically.
Yeah. So anyways, while he was trying to find the main water shutoff, I, of course, turned the valve off, all as well, but a lot of water got out.
Yeah, so let's go through some of these water shutoff locations. So under most of your sinks or behind your toilet, there's going to be shutoffs right there on the floor if those...
Okay, so we're talking about individual fixtures then, because I was thinking main...
Well, the house that I grew up in... So the house I grew up in, the main water shutoff, if I'm not mistaken, was underneath the kitchen sink, and that turned off the water to the whole house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very accessible. So when I bought... I'm in my second house now, that house, I went looking under the sink for the water shutoff, wasn't there. I was like, shoot. And so it's actually in a very inaccessible place. It's in my crawl space, in the least accessible part of it.
Yeah.
It's generally close to the street, right? So
it's usually on the street side.
On the street side, right. Yeah. And that's where it is in my house, in the crawl space. So if I bust a pipe, Daddy's going to be crawling underneath.
It's going to be a while.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was just trying to walk the listener through if bad things are happening, you've got some shutoffs usually near these fixtures, whether it's a toilet, a sink, a water heater. You've got just righty tighty to shut off the water,
Right.
and then next step is the main water line coming into your house, which typically looks like a spigot outside.
Yep.
So it's the round dial that you turn. Some of them
Could be a ball valve.
Some of the more modern ones have just the lever that swings at a 90
Josh
degree
is doing
angle.
hand motions right now.
Yes, we're watching him do
I'm
the hand
trying
motions.
to-
My house actually has both. It's got you spin it or you do the lever, which I'm motioning
Okay,
now.
you got a double shut off. Nice.
Yeah.
So, the main water line on the street side of your house. That's usually where it's located. There is also one out by the street, physically in your yard.
At the actual meter.
But you need like a wrench, a weird.
Usually, got to have a
thing
special tool to manipulate those.
I really wish I could remember the name of this tool, and it's a tool that I've been meaning to buy, and I just keep putting it off.
You're never going to use it.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
It's one of those because both of us have talked about at least 4 times needing to use it, but always either borrowing one or just not having one.
Nolan,
Yeah.
one of our neighbors, he has one.
Yeah. He's that neighbor with that tool. So
Good to know.
That covers water shut off. Going hand in hand with that is kind of another safety issue, or things could go bad quickly, is your gas shut off. You need to know where that is.
It's a good one to know. I don't know that I've ever had to use it, thankfully. I have used my water shut off a couple times, but the gas shut off I've never used, but it is obviously a safety issue. If you have a leak, if you smell gas, got to know where that shut off is.
Yeah, and if you have some homes are full electric, so you may not even have gas or propane coming into the house. But if you have a gas water heater, a gas stove, gas furnace, you're going to have gas line coming into your house.
Yeah, you probably a step back from that. You should determine whether or not you have gas service at all going to the house, because, like you said, you could have all electric, and that's a possibility. Different parts of the country may be different. Some people may not have gas line, but maybe they got a propane tank that they're out in the country. That's a thing. But in the burbs, you usually will have, if you have gas appliances, you're going to have gas running to the house. I was going to mention that just like water, so there's a individual shutoff valve for each fixture, or there should be. Same with the gas shutoff. There should be a gas shutoff like behind your stove. There should have its own gas shutoff. So those things you should know as well.
Yeah, and if you don't know where these shutoffs are, ask a handy neighbor, a handy friend, and I've never done this, but I imagine, like, especially with the gas company, you could call them and say, "Look, I don't know where my shutoff is. Could someone come show me?" If it's a safety issue.
If I remember correctly, there was when we bought our house, there's a lapse where the gas was actually shut off, and then we had to have the gas turned back on. So we're essentially starting new service. So the gas company actually physically, that's part of their, like, when you start new service, they'll actually come out. They will come inside your house. Did they do this for you guys?
Yeah, I've done this before on a house. Yeah,
yeah, and they'll make sure that there's not any issues. So you could definitely ask that guy for sure.
Yeah, and you've got to be, when they do that to start new service, you've got to be home, because they're not going to turn the gas on outside the house if they don't know everything is safe inside the house. So
exactly.
So anyway, I think that's a good item number 1: water and gas shutoffs. You got to know where those are. Locate those when you're moving into a new place. Item number 2, find your electrical panel.
Huge one. So when you're using the hairdryer, or I think I've done it with like hair clippers,
Vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, so you'll throw the switch, power goes out in that room, and you've got to go to the electrical box and turn the circuit breaker back on. So it's best to know where that is, so you're not fumbling around in the dark trying to find it. So electrical panel, got to know where it is.
And that's the big reason people blow the breaker. They now don't have power to that outlet. It's good to know that you can just yourself go to your electrical panel and get that power back on. Also, if you are doing any handy stuff with, changing light fixtures or changing out the switch plate covers or the switches in your house that you've moved into, power needs to go off for that. So you need to know where that is.
I feel like, I don't know if it's like an old guy thing, but my dad was telling me he had a friend over who was helping him with some electrical stuff, and he was like, "Oh, I never turn off the power." when I'm doing these outlets, and then he gets zapped, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah, I've seen my dad get mildly shocked too many times.
there
to
is
count.
no way I would ever work on an outlet." I don't know. I mean,
I'm not going to say I haven't done it.
oh, that's
Yeah.
are you crazy? Like,
I've done it too.
Not an
not doing
outlet.
it.
Outlets to me are really easy to get shocked on.
yeah,
But if I think I was maybe switching out just a very simple light fixture.
yep.
And if you, I mean,
Keep those wires apart.
yeah, you keep them apart. You're all right.
Safety first.
Don't touch them both.
Safety first.
I mean, I'm saying that, yes, everyone listening, turn off the breaker.
Yeah.
But I've done it before.
Yeah, I think where my dad would do it is if he was doing a project himself, especially if he like had to go in the attic and come back out of the attic and go into the attic, he would just say, "All right, I'm going to do this live, and we're going to hope for the best.
Let's do it live.
Doing it live.
He's not a dangerous guy. He's very thorough.
He weighed
meticulous,
the
but-
pros and cons, and he made the best
yeah,
decision.
and he's still with us, so that's good. Cool, electrical panel. Know where that is. Item number 3, knowing how to get into your attic if you have one, and or your crawl space if you have one. So, Dave, you've got a crawl space.
I have a crawl space. I store stuff in there. My kid goes down there and plays sometimes.
Whoa.
It's a dirt crawl space. Only when I'm down there.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll go down there, and he like brings the dump truck and down because he knows there's dirt down there, like pick up and stuff. So yeah, got to know where your crawl space is. Sometimes there are things down there that you're gonna have to work on. We're gonna talk about that in a minute.
Oh.
So knowing where your crawl space is, your attic access also. Those are definitely things you need to know.
Yep.
Yeah, probably. And Dave, we were talking about show notes before. He said that his furnace, he's got one in the attic and in the crawl space. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah.
Well, and your water shutoff is down there. So obviously you've got to know
Exactly.
how to get in there, or else you're going to have issues. So
Yep. So, I mean, it's best to know these things ahead of time. So during an emergency, say a pipe bursts when it's, super cold outside. I actually didn't know where my shutoff valve was for longer than I care to admit. And luckily nothing ever happened. But yeah, it's in the crawl space. So knowing where your crawl space access location is and attic.
Yeah, so that'll dovetail into our next one. With a lot of attics, especially in the South, for whatever reason, a lot of furnaces, AC units are up in the attic. It's not the best insulation situation, but I'm guessing we can do a whole separate
It's
episode on that.
terrible place to put it.
But yeah, there are a lot of houses with equipment in the attic or in the crawl space. So the next one is specifically on your HVAC system, knowing where your furnace is, knowing how to access your filter, which Dave mentioned a few weeks ago. He
Terrible
just
at it.
kind of figured that out not too long
Oh,
ago.
I didn't. No. Oh, let's clear it up. Right, I knew how to do it. Okay. This was a weird setup. Number
Yes.
1. Number 2, it was in the crawl space. It's dark. I couldn't see well. Okay.
It's scary.
Look.
Yeah.
So those of you that missed it, Dave had to call me over for a second set of eyes to find where his air filter was. And you had lived in the house how long and had not changed this thing?
All right. So I had changed the accessible one that was upstairs, but I did not change the one in the crawl space for 3 years.
That is crazy.
And look, it was still pumping warm.
It's a
air.
long time.
It's all
So,
good.
yeah, and obviously we can touch on it next episode. There's a schedule depending on the type of filter you're using, whether it's every 3 months, every 6 months, or whatever the recommended change on that filter is. But that is an important thing to know because that system is arguably the most expensive thing in your house.
Yep.
I mean,
Right.
these things, if you're going to get a whole new system, you're running $7-8 grand plus, and a filter can wreak havoc on a furnace and HVAC system.
Yeah,
So,
and I was going to say, please don't pay someone to come change your filter in your
Get Tim to
HVAC
come find it.
system.
unless you're doing the normal yearly like scheduled maintenance and they're in there already.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah, well, it depends. So we have a newer system, like ours is only 3 or 4 years old. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that preventive maintenance just because of the sheer cost of it. But don't pay them extra. I agree with Tim. Don't, even if they're there and they're like, $20, I'll change that out.
They're probably including that in whatever the yearly cleaning thing is, but I'm just saying,
Read your receipt.
not that someone
Read your
would do
invoice.
this because it's probably already included in some sort of service plan, but definitely don't call some HVAC guy out to
Just
come
to do that.
just to do your filter. you can totally do that yourself.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to do, and we were talking about the locations of your HVAC system, of your furnace. I think of your furnace because your condenser's outside. But anyway, your furnace, a lot of times it's very accessible. I think in my first house, it was in the garage. And so it was, I'd pull into the garage, it's right there. But in my current house, one in the crawl space, one in the attic. So you got to hunt for them.
Yeah, and they may be in normal spots, like in a basement if you have a basement, or just in a utility closet if you live in a house that's built on a slab. Regardless, know where the location of your systems are and how to get to that filter.
Yeah, these things may sound really, really simplistic to a lot of people listening, but I guarantee you start asking around to some of your friends and they'll be like, yeah, actually, I don't know where that is. I'll just have the HVAC guy do it. No, we're trying to encourage you guys to do things yourself, take ownership of stuff, and figure things out.
Make it happen.
When you get that new house, man, check into all these things.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up the list here with number 5, which is smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors.
Huge.
So this will dovetail into the next episode with things to do, but and this is kind of a to do. You need to, at the minimum, check to make sure you have adequate smoke detectors and a CO detector. I think they say like one per floor. I'm not sure the specifics on that for carbon monoxide detectors, but house fires are a serious thing. Like,
absolutely,
not to joke about. I know for a fact people let their batteries lapse in your smoke detectors. If you haven't had your system updated, or if your home's older, they're not linked. They're not individually powered or They are self-powered.
They're not hardwired.
They're not hardwired to the electrical system of the house. So you need to check those batteries, make sure you have working detectors.
Something that I learned, because we had our entire electrical system replaced when we did our major renovations, and part of that was bringing everything up to code. So we got all new smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. It's like dual, one unit does both. And they're all linked together, okay? So I thought they're hardwired in. Great. I'm good to go. I would change the batteries. I did that on a regular basis. But they build into these things, the newer ones, a shelf life. Mm-hmm. Not shelf life. That's probably the wrong word. But even if
useful life.
Yeah, there's some sort of thing where it will literally, even though the battery is fine, this sounds crazy, but it's true. Even though the battery is fine, even if it's hardwired, it'll start beeping. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what in the world is going on? I just changed the batteries. Have you guys ever heard this before?
I have not. Yeah. I have not.
Yeah, so it's
so it's telling you that it's at the end of its useful life. It's like, hey, I need to be replaced.
Yeah, but I'm kind of like, it's probably still working just fine. But yeah,
it's a liability thing for the.
It's got some
smoke
sort
detector
of
company.
Well, so I just bought new smoke and CO detectors because the house that I'm in now, all of the appliances, they were old. They were old smoke detectors. They weren't carbon monoxide detectors. So I went out and bought 4 new ones actually. And these are sealed units, right? So it's a smoke and carbon monoxide detector in one. It's not hardwired
like
in.
The 10-year battery life.
Right. So it lasts for 10 years, and then you throw it away.
That's actually smarter.
It is smarter. It's a little bit irritating that I'm going to spend $100, in 10 years. I mean, 10 years down the road. It's not a huge deal, but
it's better than changing batteries every 6 months.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about safety. You want to be safe. And when you put this thing up, you know that it's going to last 10 years. You don't have to worry about changing the battery. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah. And we'll definitely do a fire safety episode, I'm sure, down the road. But anyway, that wraps up. Those are 5. This is our 5 things you must know when you move into a new house. So just to kind of recap, we talked about knowing where your water and gas shutoffs are, knowing where your electrical panel is, knowing how to access your attic or your crawl space, knowing how to access your furnace and your HVAC units, and how to get to the filters that are in those units. And lastly, knowing or having adequate smoke detectors and CO detectors for your new home.
For sure. After the break, is it Dave? Dave's week?
It's my week.
Okay, so what we've been doing, guys, just to get you up to speed, every week one of us will research a topic. The other 2 guys have no idea what he's going to say, and that'll be coming up after the break.
This episode is sponsored by 1776 United. 1776 United is a patriotic and historically inspired lifestyle brand. They make the best patriotic shirts and apparel on the market today. I personally own many of their products, and if you want to don patriotic gear without looking gaudy, check them out on Instagram, Facebook, and at 1776united.com.
All right, guys, so this week we are debuting a new segment. We haven't done this yet.
All right.
I'm calling it, Is This a Problem?
Oh,
Okay.
All right.
intrigued.
So you're walking through your house, right, and you notice something out of sorts, and you're not real sure what's going on, but you think to yourself, is this a problem? Like, is this going to cost me a lot of money? Can I fix this? What do I need to do?
okay.
You would think that, Dave.
I would think that everybody thinks that. All right. So here we go. We're not playing trivia this time. Okay. Sorry to disappoint you two, but I'm going to be asking both of you questions. And the question is this a problem?
This will be fun because our listeners can determine if they think it's a problem or not. I see where you're going.
Well, these guys, like everybody has these problems, and a lot of people I think don't know if it's a problem. So here we go. Number one, cracks in your drywall. All right. So my house is like the biggest offender of this, and I'm walking through a doorway, an interior doorway, and there's a crack above the doorway. Let's say it's in the middle of the door, and it goes from right above my head all the way up to the ceiling. Okay?
Is this a horizontal or vertical crack, Dave?
Well, we're going to get into that.
He said on
Okay.
drywall.
So I did say on
Yeah,
drywall. Is it a problem? Tim?
Well, I would go back to whether or not it's a vertical or horizontal crack. Because I still think that does play in with. You don't think it plays in with drywall?
This
No,
is your answer.
maybe it doesn't. Okay, now I feel dumb.
No, it's good. I'm not even going to ask Josh.
Dave's a structural engineer. He will school both of us.
Well,
I don't know. I've seen houses that do have structural settling issues, and it would actually, now that I think about it, it's more of a diagonal crack. In Josh's house had that in the drywall.
your house now?
Yeah. So was it a problem? Yes, but are you actually going to be able to do anything about it? Is Josh going to somehow do a remediation of jacking half of his house
Probably
up?
not.
Probably not.
I would say yes, but
And
probably
generally speaking, I would say that most of those cracks in an older home, the damage has been done. It's settled. That might have happened within the first 5 years of its life. And it's probably just fine. Not a problem.
All right, gold star, Tim. Josh, I'm not even going to let you answer because Tim pretty much covered it all. We'll give you a chance
I'm
later.
going to say I agree with Tim.
Okay,
I
so
think was a good
that was
answer.
all pretty much correct. So just to throw it out there, if you have a crack in your drywall, it is likely not a problem. Okay. Now, Tim made a good point. If it's a vertical crack, if it goes straight up the wall, that's kind of the best kind to have. They're usually hairline cracks, are very thin. I actually read on the internet that there's like a dime test. If you can fit a dime in there,
okay,
that's kind of the cutoff for it. If it's bigger than that, that's kind of a problem.
And we're not talking, let's distinguish between cracks that are on a seam. So where two pieces of drywall.
Yeah, but you're not
going
to know where the seam is, probably. If it's
in a corner, you will. That's a seam.
Then you might just have a bad tape.
Yeah, if it is in a
Yes.
corner. But so I'm talking about it generally happens at doorways. I've seen them. I've seen a lot of them. Now I do have diagonal cracks, which are that's not always a problem, but it can be an indicator of more of an issue, of some kind of bigger structural things going on. I have those in my house as well. They kind of stress me out a little bit. They're generally not a huge issue. Not a lot to sweat about. So good job, Tim.
Nice.
All right, number 2. Is this a problem? Electrical panel buzzing or humming?
Ooh, Josh,
who's
I'll
this
let
for?
you.
This is for Josh.
I
We'll
feel
let
like
Josh take this one.
Yeah, Josh has more electrical know-how than I do.
This is I'm going to say yes. Now, there's different types. There's different types of buzzing in your electrical panel. So, fun fact, over the summer, I had to switch out my main electrical panel. Now, I did not do it myself.
Okay, all right. I took a step back there because I would say if you're working on your electrical panel, you can do, if you have a lot of knowledge of, electricity, go for it. But that's generally something that I would say is best left to a professional.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very comfortable with it. I work inside my electrical panel a lot, but as far as replacing it,
the whole
you
thing.
have to, like, touching the main wires that come into your house from the street. No, I'm not going to do that.
Could be a bad day.
Yeah. So anyway, that was changed. But before I had it changed out, and my house was built in 1967, I believe, and the electrical panel was original. And inside that electrical panel, if you put your ear up to it, you could hear some buzzing. Now, I actually did ask the electrician about that. I was like, yeah, this breaker is buzzing. What's up with that? And he's like, it's just old. He's like, this is just an old breaker. It's having trouble handling the power. It'll trip if it fails. So that's one to not worry about. But if it is buzzing, then it's telling you something. It's not adequate to handle the power that's going through it. Now, my parents' house, they had an old ranch built in the 50s, I believe, maybe early 60s. Either way, they just over the years just kept adding and adding and adding onto this one panel, different wires, finishing the basement, adding rooms, and they got their panel so overloaded that you could visibly see arcing at one point between wires coming out of the panel.
Bad news.
Yeah, and that provided its own sound. So I'm going to say, in general, yes. If your panel is buzzing, have a pro look at it. Okay,
so once again, it's hard to trip you guys up tonight. Josh is correct. So it kind of depends on what it sounds like. If there's a slight hum, like in my house when I'm in my laundry rooms where my panel is, you can hear a little bit of a hum. If you're in the room and you can hear it, but you can't hear it in a different room, generally not a problem. Like a slight hum, not a huge issue.
Makes sense.
If you hear popping, that's a big, like Josh said, that's arcing. It's not a good thing. And also, if you're in a different room and you can hear it humming or buzzing, that's generally more cause for concern. So slight hum, not a huge issue. Louder hum, kind of a big deal. Need to have a professional look at it.
Yeah.
Good job, Josh. Number 3. I think we have 6 of these, so halfway through it. Driveway cracks. See those pretty often. Are they a problem, boys?
Again, it would have to be what type of crack.
Okay, and also let me distinguish. This is probably what most people have, but a concrete driveway.
Okay, concrete driveway. If the crack is where one piece of concrete is higher than the other one,
yep,
that's probably an indication that you've got like some sort of washout or something up underneath that piece of concrete. And really, it's just a trip hazard. I mean, other than that, it really comes down to A, aesthetics, B, safety. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm going to say that's really kind of a subjective thing.
What do you think, Josh?
Another cause of cracks, I would say most, is trees, tree roots, buckling, and it's a little bit of a safety hazard with trip issues. Unless it's causing water to like funnel into your garage or into your house somehow, not a major problem. Cracked driveways are more of a trip hazard, and they're ugly, I think, is the biggest problem.
I would say also it depends on how old the driveway is. So my driveway does not have hardly any cut joints in it. Yep. So basically, what is that? What's
control joint?
Control joints.
There you go.
And so to let our listeners know what that is, whenever you have a new driveway poured, they're going to do lots of these control joints. So it looks like an actual line in the concrete. And what that's doing is it's giving the concrete a place to crack. So all concrete will crack. It's just a given. So what they're doing is they're allowing a place for it to crack. So if you have like a newer driveway and it's got those, and then you're noticing a lot of other cracks elsewhere, then you might have a bigger issue. Whereas my driveway is super old, they didn't do that then, and I've got cracks. I'm not worried about it because I know that it's got a crack.
Right. Somewhere. So yeah, the answer is generally it's not an issue. Like Tim mentioned, concrete is going to crack. It's kind of inevitable. It's a brittle material. Working in building construction, we deal with it a lot where clients, they don't want cracks like on their interior slabs, but we do a lot to mitigate it. But it's something it's hard to avoid. Concrete's brittle. It's going to crack, particularly outside. So when you have fast changes in temperature, when it gets really hot, really cold, the concrete will shrink, it'll contract, and it'll crack. So like these guys said, it's generally not an issue. Your driveway is going to crack, but one thing to look out for is when you have a crack and one side is higher than the other. One side's high, one side's low. That's a little bit more cause for concern. It could be a tree root growing under there. It could be more of a structural issue with your driveway, but generally not a big deal.
Next.
Good stuff.
Next one, what do we have here? Okay, so cloudy or brown water coming out of your faucet. Is this a problem?
I'm 50-50 on this. So cloudy water, and this is random, but just this week.
Let me clarify real quick.
Yes.
You've had clear water and then it turns cloudy or brown.
Yeah. So just in our office building this week, they're doing some renovations on the bathrooms, and so they shut off the water at night and turn it back on before people arrive for the day. And they told us that the water may look cloudy or milky white, like still white, when you first turn on the faucets. And they said that is no cause for alarm because that is water. That's actually air being suspended in the water. Right. So it's really thousands, millions of air bubbles that are making the water look white. So in that case, probably not an issue. Now, in our neighborhood, it's an older neighborhood. We have a lot of old infrastructure, and it fails periodically. We haven't had one in a while, so I'm guessing next week.
Yeah, probably next week we'll have one. I feel like it's about once a year.
So you guys lose water?
Well, we have multiple water main breaks.
Wow.
Yep.
And there was a series there. I feel like it was happening like every other month. Like, oh, there's another leak. So what they have to do is they dig down through the street.
They shut the water off for the neighborhood, basically.
Yeah. Now, thankfully, we do have two main water lines coming in to our neighborhood. So it depends on which one of those bursts or whatever, whether or not we lose water. But go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, they dig up the street. Well, shut off the water first, dig up the street, repair the break. And when they kick that water back on, it sometimes can have it's brown.
They're supposed to flush the line, though, because I actually complained to them because it was happening so much. And I feel like I work from home, so I'm probably the guy that always turns on the water first. And so I'm thinking, like, I'm getting all the dirt.
You're flushing the whole neighborhood.
I'm flushing this line, and it's getting all in my water heater and all this stuff. So I went and I was like, hey, guys, can you flush? Because they have the ability to do that through a fire hydrant. They can flush the lines before, or I guess right when they hook it up, right? Hook it back up.
So the cause for alarm is probably not necessary if you know construction is going on up the street, your water's a little dirty, probably not an issue. It's not good for your water heater, like Tim said. It gathers in the strainers that are in your faucets, so typically not. But I've never experienced this, but there are cases where water gets contaminated and they have the boil water advisory. I've never experienced one of those, but I'm guessing that's a situation where if the water's discolored, you don't want to be drinking it.
That would be obviously a huge issue. I'm going to kind of disagree with you guys. I think because I don't live on the worst street in America, like it sounds like you guys do. I don't know what that's about. Well, I've never had any issues. I've only been in my house, like I said, three and a half years now. But generally what will happen, I would say for most homeowners, is if your water suddenly goes cloudy or brown, it generally should point to your water heater going bad. Now, a lot of times what you're going to have more symptoms come up where you're going to kind of lose hot water. Your water's going to get kind of warm, not really hot. And that's an indicator that your water heater is going bad. But inside your water heater, you have a steel drum that holds the water, right? Mm-hmm. And over time, the water will rust that drum. And when your water heater leaks, that's what's happening is water has gotten through the water tank and is now leaking out onto your floor. And that's when you replace your water heater. Now, before that happens, you have sediment that gets built up in the tank and some rust from that process. And that can lead to cloudy or brown water. So many times, if you know something's going on, if they're doing work in your neighborhood, probably not a huge issue. But if it comes out of nowhere, something to have looked at. Next item, is this a problem? Sticking doors or doors that will not close all the way inside your house.
I would say that it could be an indication of a structural issue of settling. If you've noticed that your door was working fine and then it starts to stick.
Happens very quickly.
It could just be change of season. So
Yes.
the humidity level, depending on what type of doors you have like the cheap doors like I have, they're hollow core doors. They do have a decent amount of flex,
right,
given the season and the humidity, the area of the country that you live in. We're in the South, so we have tons of humidity. So when there is a change in season, yeah, I mean, the doors actually open and close differently than they do in the wintertime.
Yeah, I totally agree. Could be a structural issue. I feel like along the same lines that we discussed on the drywall thing, it could be settling of the house. But if it comes on all of a sudden and it's drastic, like you literally can't open the door, you may have something going on. But around here, at least, it's very seasonal. Just the other day, I mean, 2 weeks ago, it was like 26 degree high. And then about 5 days ago, it was 80 degrees high. That day, 2 of the doors in my house started sticking.
Wow.
One of my bathroom doors and one of my kids' bedroom doors just started sticking just a little bit. And I was like, whoa, that is crazy. That just a temperature swing like that will cause everything to expand a little bit onto itself.
Yeah, and you might even notice a really this might cause a lot of people to be concerned, is a crack in your drywall between the wall and the ceiling. And that has a lot to do with the type of roof structure you have, right? If you have a truss roof, Dave? No, am I wrong about this? Because it's all kind of like tied in together and it's going to like lift as one. If it's like, don't you have this issue, Josh, at your house? I thought you did. No?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know this one.
Okay, yeah, I've noticed this before, and people have complained to me about it, where they'll get cracks on their ceiling, between the ceiling and the wall.
No, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yep.
Sorry.
And that happens actually to the best guy. Like, I follow some high-end home builders on Instagram, and when the seasons change, a lot of these guys are up north, but when the seasons change, they'll get gaps where they've caulked previously, like when they built the house new.
That's what I'm
So you're saying where the wall and the ceiling meet,
Yes.
you'll get a crack there?
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
I did a
Gotcha.
horrible job of explaining
So
it.
this
but-
this is not doors to your question, but
Right.
it's something for people to know. Like if the temperature has recently changed, especially if it's gotten colder, and you see some gaps opening up
Right.
where caulk should be or was, that's not cause for extreme alarm. Like these guys I follow, they build $1 million houses, and they'll have to go back when it's cold, when those joints are open, and reseal those joints.
Yeah, as far as a structural issue, generally your roof is not going to spontaneously lift away from your house, causing a crack at the top
Right.
of your wall, unless it's a tornado and it's getting ripped off of your house, in which case you're going to know there's a problem. But yeah, that can happen. But so, guys, good job on that one. All good points. Temperature, a change in temperature, humidity will cause your doors to stick. Also, over time, I think Tim mentioned this, houses settle. It happens, right? And so around doors, it's kind of a weak spot for your house, and a lot of stress gets concentrated there. The door frame can move a little bit over time, causing the door to not close all the way. Almost all my doors in my house don't close well. It drives me insane. Kind of hard to fix sometimes.
Yep.
But
Some of that's structural, some of that's bad
some of it can be
carpentry.
structural. Well, what happened in my case was it's an older house that the people that we bought it from, they flipped it. The contractor flipped it. They put new doors on, but they didn't reset the door frame. And so it's a new door in an old door frame that's already settled. The door doesn't fit right. It doesn't close. So, but the first thing that you want to do if you do have this issue, it's a really quick fix, and a lot of times it'll fix the issue. Tighten the door hinges. So you have screws on your door hinges, tighten those down, because a lot of times over time, those screws can kind of work loose and will cause your door to not close well or stick or just have some issues with it.
I can see that.
Good advice.
Dave,
Yo.
great.
Yeah, that was it, guys.
There.
We wrapped it up.
That was
So,
enjoyable. Thank you.
just wanted to reiterate to you guys. So we're doing this series on new home know-how. A lot of the things that we covered today, you might be sitting there like, really? Does somebody not know this? But I'm telling you, a lot of guys don't know these simple things. And so we just wanted to throw it out there just to make sure, as a baseline, things you should know. And then our subsequent episodes, we're going to be talking about things you should do when you get a new house. So if you've got a friend that just bought a house or is about to buy a house, share these episodes with them and let them know, because we're going to be sharing some really great information.
And this is for the ladies too. I mean, there's a lot of single working women buying houses for the first time. They might not have had this knowledge handed to them. So, spread the word.
Right.
Spread the word.
Right. And if you don't know these things, if these are new to you, don't feel bad, because you've got to learn this stuff somewhere. It's not obvious to everybody. Some people who don't, they don't think about this kind of stuff all the time. So if you don't know these things, don't feel bad about it.
Be encouraged.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's going to close us out for this week, guys. As always, please take some time to subscribe to our channel and check us out on youcanman.com. There you'll find links to our Instagram and our Facebook page. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.